It's still two for the whole world. 10 toes down, chose my own words wisely. I poet like a bar. Send you spit like your cars.
You know, I just want to say clear, like up front, that I think it's crazy of the overall response of our leadership right now, of like just everything that so many people are experiencing and voicing and acknowledging, and for there to be so little progress with so much protesting going on. Like, the math just doesn't add up to me, you know? And in that way, it makes me question, what is it that is inside of the core of our foundation, at the core of our system, that allows for like so little to be accomplished. And I also think it's very interesting that the overall perspective of most of the people that are the ones who are elected to be in power is that, you know, things just take time to get done. And I don't know in any other industry that way of thinking is at all appropriate for the sake of its progress, you know, or its forward moving contributions to its industry. Like, there's nothing else outside of that where we just all of us just accept that things just take time in the light of our system. And it's like, if that is the condition of its, you know, existence, then how could it be that if we are the ones that are like in control of it, then if it does take time, then how can we not change it to format our needs for today? You know, right now I don't really know a lot about a whole heap of stuff. You know, it was only recently that I started reading, you know, information about laws and, you know, seeing what some of this stuff was. I'm just a really, like, pretty much a really normal person. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a person. And, like, low-key speaking about this stuff was, like, initially something that was kind of, like, difficult for me to do. But I think, like, just seeing, like, what is happening so often on a day-to-day basis, like the purpose for peaceful protests that of right now being police brutality is very intense. And the fact that police officers are fighting for the right to be able to be correct about it, you know, like, so this concept of qualified immunity is very new to me as well. So qualified immunity, the doctrine, legal defense created and implemented and enforced by the Supreme Court, I've only recently learned, is enacted, and honestly, it's just one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard of, if it is truly enforced and empowered by the people who are supposed to be the law of the land. And so basically how I understand it is, because you're walking down the street and you're just, you know, you're trying to go get done whatever you got to get done, and you just happen to end up in a situation with the police. That's one situation. Right now, let's say, you know, like you're at a protest peacefully. You have a sign, and you know a police officer is there, and a bunch of them are there, and you end up getting yanked up, and your civil rights, you know, they get violated. You go to jail, you get detained, whatever happens after that happens. However, you feel like there was an excessive amount of force used on you because, I don't know, maybe your face is bruised now. I don't know what the situation is. You know, there's so many different situations that cover police brutality. So the fact that the detail of qualified immunity is based on clearly established law, which says that, you know, you can't be right unless another case that was exactly the same as yours existed before yours. Otherwise, these cops are gonna get off. I don't understand how the Supreme Court could say something like that in a long doctrine, and And we as a people, even if you want to go like historic Declaration of Independence speech, talk, doctrine, words written. In that doctrine, it clearly defines that, like, if the government starts to eat itself by its own ignorance, that it is to the people, that it is for the people, it is the right of the people to make sure that the few who contribute to the power of a system that is flawed and doesn't work anymore should be like questioned. Should be questioned and should be understood, so that way we can make sure that it doesn't happen anymore. You know? Because ultimately, I really feel like this is more about justice, not vengeance. You feel me? Justice, not vengeance. I don't want anyone's life to be fucked up. And I think that is like the purest like seed in the soil of some really nutrient rich volcanic soil that could grow to make the world so much more of a better place in the entirety of the experience of all of us. Because when it comes down to these laws and these bills and the fact that we're allowing still, in my opinion, the fact that we have two massive representation, like two massive representatives, sorry about that, of what's supposed to be like the grand majority of like such a vast amount of land, as if two groups of parties could really cover the complexity of the American experience. It's silly to even think that that's really what they allow to go on, that we allow to go on. I don't know. I just think that the fact that right now there's been more protesting than progress on paper. There's been more protesting than progress on paper by the people we've elected to get into power, and they're still fighting and finding reasons to argue against what is ultimately debatable that's good for all of us. And ultimately, democracy is supposed to be able to always protect the platform for discussion. You know what I'm saying? So if like I feel like we should all be open to discussion, but the discussion should be with the point of having a conclusion, and that conclusion being what is ultimately going to increase the overall quality of everyone. Because right now we're talking about America, right? But like the police brutality that's happening right here is very interesting, that so many countries outside of these walls, outside of these barriers, are understanding, they acknowledge, and they say out loud, they tearing down statues, they understand as like, yo, this is violatory, this is not the way, this isn't good for any of us. And if injustice can happen there, then damn sure it's going. So I think if it's so many humans on the planet that's able to acknowledge this to our core, to allow for any measure of a system to slow down the progress of our beneficial existence, is criminal. You know, I was on the Supreme Court website, and I read that they can have their jobs forever. So that means that the ones who are currently instated have had their jobs for a really long time. The world is a constantly changing place. The scope is constantly growing. The depth of field is constantly expanding. For us to like allow for people of a certain scope to like create laws and doctrines and legal defenses that allow for the most dangerous. First of all, police officers are clearly the most dangerous of all of us. They are the most highly trained with weapons. They are probably the most licensed as far as having the ownership of weapons of most collections of humans right now on the planet. And honestly, especially in America, the fact that most of us don't even exercise our right to own guns, the fact that these are the humans that probably do, they probably are the ones who exercise that right. I would not want to say that, like, how can I say this? I do feel like, to some degree, in the arguments from their perspective, it's like, yo, don't tell me how to do my job. And to some degree, I feel like that's something that a lot of us feel with what we do. And to some degree, I feel like, as far as trying to understand the perspective, I can get that. But when your job has the capacity to be deadly, to like to inflict deadly force onto another human being, like, I believe that your emotions should be minimally incorporated into how you impact yourself into that situation. You know, the concept of excessive force is very interesting to me, because it doesn't really play like it does on paper. You know, like I read like the definition on Cornell Law website was like, it was in the language is like, so it's like idiot proof. It was like, yo, excessive force is force in which is used in excess by the police. Like, I'll find it for you. Like, I'll put it right there. But like, it's very plain language. So we know what excessive force is. So at this point now, if any, and from what I've read, like, I've only read through 60 pages of the Republican bill so far. There's like 160 something of them. And then of the the Democratic bill, I've read like 20, 30 something. I'm gonna read some more of that. But they both have some very odd language in there that I would raise a huge, like, eyebrow to before we even vote on this stuff. Like, how do we vote on amendments to bills before they go? You know, like, if they're gonna take so much time to choose routes of, like, how they can minimize progress, then, like, how can we remove these barriers as citizens of states, of the members of this wonderful thing that we call the United States of America? You know, cops should not be fighting for the right to be able to murder people. Like, come on, bro. You can't even say that's a good day on the job. You know what I'm saying? That's not cool. What you think after you, like, so the two gentlemen who were in Buffalo, the two officers who were in Buffalo who just straight up shoved over the 75-year-old gentleman, bust his head wide open, ears bleeding out, walked right over his body. They got charged with felony assault. But for a fact, they got released the same day they were detained without bail. And I think that's like, that shows a gross amount of favoritism, to say the least, by the judges, whoever the judge was for that situation. Like, seriously, that's not even legal, you know? The ROR, release on your own reconnaissance, you know what I'm saying? Like, to say that, you know, you sign a paper that says, like, you know, for the future dates that come, you make sure you're there, and, you know, you can just go. You can go on your own reconnaissance. It's okay. You just come back when we have future, and don't take place in the crimes that you took place in that put you here in the first place, and you can go. That's how they got out on. That's how these cops are getting released by judges. ROR. And it's like, how can you just do that? First of all, ROR is supposed to be preserved for first-time offenders and people who are committing nonviolent crimes. Felony assault people, that's violent as fuck. You feel me? That's mad violent. It's like Mortal Kombat violence, bro. You know what I'm saying? And they just let them go, no bail. Who are these people? Who are these officials? Who are these elected human beings that are just like throwing their power in ways that are not appropriate to the effective nature of making life better for every human being on this planet? And I think that we should not allow for human beings that have the capacity of allowing this level of ignorance to continue to have their job anymore. The Supreme Court are able to have their jobs forever by this clause called the Good Behavior Clause. It says they can have their job for as long as they want if they practice good behavior. I would argue that they not practicing good behavior as soon as the day that they instated, the day that they established qualified immunity was the day that they were able to, that I feel like we as the people were able to like get rid of them. Get rid of them. Their jobs aren't able to, you have no good behavior in this. And I honestly believe on a even more serious, on another note, qualified immunity does not exist without police misconduct. Get the point. All right, this is my point. Qualified immunity, the use of the defense of qualified immunity does not exist without police misconduct. So these officers in the street, what they're really arguing for is for their comrades to continue to keep their jobs, even though they are violating American human rights. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. And we can sit here and allow our media to slay our youth, to slay our people, to slay our human beings on this planet, because ain't nobody really valuing life appropriately here. You know what I'm saying? Breonna Taylor was a human being. We don't got to talk about shit else. You know what I'm saying? All of this EMT talk, all of this like, oh, she was contributing to society. In the capacity of a police officer, if you're enforcing the law, then like apply yourself in the way that you're able to do so and protect life. Yeah, so some of the language that I felt was more very interesting in some of these bills, the Republican bill just had like a lot of money allotment. I've never read documents like this before. This was very new for me. They had just tons of money lined up in grants for like body cameras and like retraining on like de-escalation. And it's like, wow, like, isn't it billions of dollars already allotted to y'all already, and y'all don't know how to de-escalate shit already? Like, do we gotta hire somebody private who know how to approach people like human beings? You know what I'm saying? And is this what our leaders of the current government, our current leaders, is this what they feel like is worth being silent over? Is this what they feel like is worth being minimal over? You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like ultimately they talk about having a global economy all the time on the news. You know, oh, you know, everything is growing. You can get this and this and this. This plant is grown over here, but you can buy coffee over there and sell it over blah, blah, blah. They talk about this shit all the time. They make money on this shit all the time. Like commodities, you know what I mean? And it's like, how is it that we're able to do that, but we're still able to slow progress in such a way that clearly criminal people are able to still go home the same day they catch a body, bro? Clearly criminal, you did not have to do that. That is not at all anything else but excessive force. And I don't know, man. I feel like qualified immunity is really just a really disgusting thing that we as Americans should make ourselves aware of and just completely eradicate. Because ultimately, no matter what the Democrats or the Republicans come up with and vote on, and we all come up with and establish, qualified immunity is still going to be a thing and can still be used by police officers in a way that is unleashed. But yeah, I'm not going to talk your ear off. I hope that this information is useful to you. I'm very much interested in learning more about this. If you have information on it, please contact me. Yeah, man, this is the Two for the World show. You know what I'm saying? The platform where we create us is Actual Factuals. I'm William Zillions. Thank you very much for your time, and stay true. It's still 2-4.
I believe you see what the fuck you You ain't no one property. Vibrate higher, don't you mute your colors of nobody. Nobody say you nothing, fuck out of here, go for your win, no need for you to slow up. Well, none of these nobodies. So your dreams and go up.